principles that we had to observe and that are good to observe when carrying out this process. That the information or the data must be accurate, it must be reliable, timely, ethical, and complete. We can move on to the next slide. And then in evaluating the effectiveness of some of these methods, or the effectiveness of the data, there are different types of evaluation. You can look at the baseline, which is looking at the starting conditions. The midterm, it looks at the progress made up until a certain period or the midpoint of the project, and the end line, the final assessment of whether the project has been effective or not. And the impact, looking at whether the desired impact from the onset has been adequately met. And then the process, looking at the different methods and strategies of approach to the project. And then because we are in the development landscape, we will be quite biased to that landscape in looking at the OECD or and DAC criteria for monitoring and evaluation, where we are looking at the relevance of the data, the coherence of the data, the effectiveness of the methods carried out, the efficiency of the methods or the process, as well as the impact, or whether it was adequately met or not. And then we will also look at the sustainability of the project itself beyond just what has been provided by the funding partner and the time frame that was put for that project. We need to be able to carry out to carry on the work, and also ensure that there's long-term benefit of the work that has been carried on. We can move on to the next slide, please. So, as uh, an organization that advocates for inclusion, we also advocate for participatory monitoring and evaluation, as well as learning and accountability. So, where maybe the institutions and the member states will issue performance reports on an annual or quarterly basis, we also advocate for shadow reports that come from the civil society or the development landscape, in the same vein, to ensure that whatever reports the states or whatever reports the regional institutions are issuing out are an accurate reflection of what happens on the ground. So we then engage the involvement of communities to participate in defining the success, defining the data collection and the reflections that they give, and the decision making that they recommend, in order for us to say whatever the state or the regional mechanisms are doing is effective or not. And when it comes to accountability, our organizations are accountable for the communities themselves, even the donors or the funding partners, and the governments and the citizens. And the modern way of doing things now is that we lead with evidence, and this will help us shape or better glean the reflections from the communities and other stakeholders. And it informs our learning processes, as well as how we adapt to what we are discovering, and the ever evolving landscape that within which we operate. And it helps us also to move towards improvement of our approaches, improvement of our implementation processes. We can move on to the next slide, please. So, monitoring and evaluation has basic principles that are common across all sectors. But there are certain variations that I thought important to just point out here. When it comes to civil society, the main focus of M&E is social change, and the primary metrics involve human outcomes, how these things affect or impact the community. And then in the corporate sector, the main focus is usually on profitability. This is a capitalist driven sector. And so it relies a lot on return on interest and key performance indicators. And then when it comes to government, the focus there is on public services, especially delivery. So the key metric is policy indicators, whether policies that are developed, policies that are implemented, have any um, significant benefit for the people in terms of service delivery. And then there are humanitarian sectors where we are looking at emergency response. And the primary metric there is the number of lives that are saved in every crisis. And then we have infrastructure where we are looking at the efficiency of delivery. And the primary metric is the completion rate. As I mentioned earlier, with the telecommunications infrastructure across the SADC region, we are looking at how many countries are currently compliant with the rollout of the implementation process. So as soon as we reach 16 countries, then we know that we've reached the success level, for example. Next slide, please. So we have subtle differences between the development sector and the private sector when it comes to M&E. When it comes to the main goal of the development sector, social transformation is key. In the corporate sector, it's profit generation. When we look at the time horizon, with the development sector, we're looking at long-term impact, and with the corporate sector, it's short-term or medium term. And then when it comes to accountability in the development sector, key stakeholders in the process of accountability include communities and donors. But in the corporate sector, it's just the